We're here today with Evergreen Computing, and I've got some of the Evergreen team with me, and we're going to try and find out a little bit about what makes them tick. So I've got Martin, I've got Andy, and I've got Chris. Martin, let's start with you.
Hi.
What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Coming into work, working on some interesting projects for customers that need solutions.
And what's your background? How did you get into this?
Went to uni about a decade ago, worked my way around a few different companies, didn't really get into computing as much as I'd like. My previous job kind of came in through the admin side, stepped across into development from there finally, and kind of joined Evergreen after that.
Sorry Martin, I interrupted you there. Andy, what's it like to work with this guy?
Yeah, brilliant. He's very thorough, we always say. No, he is. No, he's very thorough. He's basically called the tester in the office, because if we test through things and we think we test things through quite thoroughly, we give it to Martin, and he'll more than likely come back to a list with 20 very little things, which at the end of the day are right things to pick up, and it then gives a very, very nice solution and slick-looking solution to the customer at the end of the day.
Chris, what are these two guys good to work with? A good team?
Definitely, yeah. I would say Martin with the testing, as Andy said, he's fantastic on it. There's always something that he picks up. And if we've got any problems with the code or we can't work out a solution, then Andy's always the guy who manages to solve the problem. So yeah, we've got a nice, good all-round team. Everyone's got their specialties. Regarding that team and regarding Evergreen, what do you think makes the company stand out from the crowd, would you say? I think it's the sort of the level that we go into detail with the customer. It's incredibly exciting. For a start, whenever we go and see a new customer, it's always a new sector, a new business, a new way of doing things. And although a lot of businesses are similar at a higher level, when you get down to the nitty-gritty detail, there's always really good challenges or interesting ways they do things that sort of keep it really interesting. So Martin, if I can come back to you, yep. When you've got a new customer to deal with, what's that first phone call like? When you're interacting with the client for the first time.
Generally, I'll pass this across to Andy for the new customers, because he's very good with the sales and knowing exactly. But
presumably you do have to deal with the customers face to face?
Sure. I've gone out to a few meetings, sitting down and.
Do you enjoy that part of it?
Yes, yeah. Largely depends on the customer. We've had a couple of difficult ones in the past, but yeah, for the most part, it's very exciting going out and finding out exactly what a customer needs, putting it down, and then after a day or so of talking to the customer, we'll come back and put it together in a write-up, get everything pinned down at a very high level of detail.
And Andy, let's turn to you then as the person who's likely to possibly talk to them first. After the contract's been agreed. What's your approach to that? How do you start building that relationship? Because presumably that relationship is really important.
Yeah, definitely it is. We try and find out about the business, what the business does, and how it works. Because to build a system, we really need to understand the business needs. So we might ask them awkward questions at times. We don't mind asking them, but they're questions to help really, because the more we can understand, then the better solution we can then offer.
Now, customers sometimes, famously for any business, can be awkward, because they have difficult requirements, not just in the computing world, but in any world. So how do you deal with that? I mean, do you have a way of a strategy to cope with that, when really tricky questions come down the line?
We'll generally talk it through with the customers, because there might be a simple solution that we've seen with another customer previously, because at quite a high level, businesses mainly work the same. You have a product and you get an inquiry in, then you add some value in, and then you invoice at the end of it. But along the way, there's nitty-gritty bits and difficult questions, difficult bits that they do. And we might try and guide them in a way, or we'll just go away and research the problem and come back. If there's something that we don't know off the top of our heads, because we don't know everything, then we'll go away and research it and come back.
Chris, let me turn to you for a sec. What would you say, looking back over past clients, what's the most challenging project you've ever had to deal with?
Oh wow! Well, there's one that I've just finished working on. Generating some really complex reports that review employees. So there's a lot of questions going on. So questionnaires are sent out automatically. And then you've got to take all this data and compile it, build charts, calculate averages for data. and putting all that together in a really concise report, which will eventually be printed out by our client to go through with their clients, and having that document spot on has been quite a challenge, but it's been really good fun because there's a lot of detail to go into and you learn a lot from doing something challenging like that.
And there's a question for all of you, but we'll start with Martin. What makes a good software developer?
I think understanding exactly what the customer needs, very good start to the answer to that question. And then from there, it's a case of figuring out exactly how to do it in your head in, not the quickest, but the best way for the customer, making sure there's a very low number of bugs and issues that the customer will need to follow up on. Basically, at the end of the day, the customer needs a system that supports all their needs. We can hand that over to them in as good a way as possible, then that's perfect for the customer.
Andy, same question to you. What makes a good developer?
Yeah, a little bit on what Martin said. So understanding the requirements is key, and a very key thing is if you don't, then it's okay to ask. It's okay to ask the client if there's the best. You're not sure the best way of doing something, then we'll go and talk it through. We'll go sit in our boardroom round the table, 3 or 4 of us, talk a solution through. And that's definitely key, because then you can do it the best way the first time around.
Andy, your turn. What makes a good software developer?
So again, well, everything that both Martin and Andy have said, but also planning. When you've got a task to complete, it's very important that you know what the end result is going to be like and work backwards so that you know where you're going from the beginning, rather than sort of starting and then working out at the end that it's not quite right.
And Martin, what's the best thing about working for Evergreen?
I love the location to start with. It's a brilliant drive in the morning every day, kind of sun rising over the hills on your way in. You get in and you kind of dive into whatever projects you've got on for the day. You get to manage your own workload as kind of based on what customer needs and kind of urgencies behind stuff. And really good team. I really enjoy working with these guys.
You have to say that, don't you?
I do, but it doesn't mean it's not true.
Okay, I believe you. I do believe you. Same question, Andy. What's the best thing about working here?
Never knowing what the day's going to bring, really. As much as I try and plan my days, sometimes there's always something that crops up. There's always interesting projects to work on, new technologies. Pretty much all the time we're trying to keep up to date with all technologies, new technologies with customers that their requirements are bringing to us.
That's good. Chris, same question. What's the best thing about working here?
Best thing about working here is no project is the same. So whether it's just a challenge or interesting, it's always new people to meet, new software to build, and again, we never really do the same thing twice. So there's always something new to keep us interested.
Chris, if a customer phones in to a traditional software company or a traditional IT company, they often, it's quite a process to get to the right person, and then if you have to make the phone call again an hour later, you kind of start again. How do you avoid that at Evergreen?
Well, Evergreen, everyone who picks up the phone is a programmer. So you will be talking to someone who, even if they haven't worked on your system specifically, they'll have worked on a system or a similar system, so they'll know how to approach your question. We have no sort of support tickets or call centres, so it is very much you talk to the person who develops your code and they'll be able to communicate with you and help you through your problem, whether it's additions to a system or ringing up just with general questions.
And Martin, the traditional view of a programmer, I think perhaps is somebody who their first skill is not communication skills, if I can put it that way. They're great programmers, but maybe they're not so good at communicating with the customer. But that doesn't seem to be the case here. You all seem to be very keen on talking to customers. How has that come about?
Just through the years of experience with talking to customers, really. Generally, even if we don't know the answer to a customer's question straight away, we can phone them back 10 minutes later once we've figured it out by having a look at the system. Just getting to know the customers, getting to know their needs, and if a customer phones in and you've worked on the system, there's generally 2 or 3 people on each project. So if someone's ever off on holiday, there'll always be someone there that will cover it. You know the systems, you can generally predict what the questions are going to be and come up with the answers as they need them.